Okay, so once you receive your link for the work process tracking Google form, you click on it and you open it up, and we're going to use Google Chrome to add a widget to our home page on an Android phone. So now that we open it, if we scroll down, it says add to home screen. So we're going to do that, and you're going to pick a name, doesn't matter, and click add. Once we go to the home screen, you should have a little purple form on your desktop that you click on every day to enter your hours. So when we click on it, it will open up in our Google form and we can add our hours. So the date, you can enter today's date. If you're doing it every day and keeping up with it, that's not necessary because we do a timestamp, but if you forget a day or something, you should enter a date. This display here will automatically pull data from your previous entries. Right now it's showing 0 because this is a blank sheet, but preventative maintenance, it'll show the hours you've entered previously in preventative maintenance. Notice that it says 200 hours max. So when you enter your hours, if this equals that, then you've maxed out that work tracking area. So you don't enter data here. If you accidentally click on it, it's fine. It doesn't do anything. It just records it. But we're looking for those answers. And so this is the only way I could bring data into the form and consistently update it. So preventative maintenance, you're going to pick a section on any of them. If we pick how to perform and we enter the data. Now the question is, what if I do setting up and lubrication? Well, you'll have to enter the data twice, so you'll have to reopen the form and enter hours in it twice. So pick a section. You're only allowed 8 hours in a day for work tracking, so pick how many hours you worked in that section. Once you get all that done, you can hit submit. I will send you a separate link so you can look at the overview sheet. You can even, when you hit submit, there'll be a link to edit your answers if you need to. So you can go back if you made a mistake and fix that. And for the rest of the video, I'll show how the spreadsheet tracking works. Okay, so these are the shared copies of the Google Sheet and Google Form. Now, we're going to go through how they work and how you can modify them to make them your own. You only have to do this process once, and then you can, once you have all of your work processes entered into the spreadsheet, you can duplicate this pretty easy. But it does require some queries into the spreadsheet. I'll show you how those work. A certain amount of Excel knowledge would be helpful. So we'll get started here. So let's start by making a copy. And we would do this before I deployed to a student. So you want to, once you get your copy, your original done, you don't want to mess with it and simply make a copy. Now I can do a copy when I open it up into Sheets or Forms, but it doesn't work. The only way I found to make a copy is we're going to start if we're deploying a form from this. So what we're going to do is in Google Drive, we are going to make a copy. Now when I make the copy, it's going to create 2 files, and it's automatically going to link the Google form to the Google Sheet, and this is the only way I found to do that. So you use the Google Drive File Explorer and you make a copy. And we will just rename them both the same. The internal links should be done, so we're just going to rename those demo or work in process, doesn't matter. notice that this says copy of a copy. Those two forms are linked. I made a copy of the original and renamed it demo. It doesn't matter, but just make sure that the two file names are correct. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to rename this one back to the correct form. So we've renamed them to demo, and those are the files we're going to be working in to correct this form to match your apprenticeship program. You only have to do one form for each apprenticeship program for your work tracking. So I'm going to start with showing you how this works, because you're going to have to modify some things. So let's look up here at our work tracking. So this is the form the students would see. This one is not for answering. We're using an add-on, a form filler, which I'll show you here in a second, to pull data from this spreadsheet it's linked to back into the question, so the students can see how many hours they have entered into that section. Now, this is not necessary. You can share this spreadsheet with the students. I would not let them have the ability to edit it. But if we wanted to do an add-on, we would come over here and we're going to open it with Google Forms so we can edit it. And we're going to wait a little bit for the add-ons to appear. Here's your add-on key. We click that. We can see that I'm using Form Ranger. So you would have to add that add-on to your Google Forms. So if I went to Google Forms while I was logged in, nope, that's not it. So you're going to click add-ons, and that'll take you to the store where you can add them. And we are going to search for Form Ranger. And mine is already installed, but you would click there and install that add-on and give it a few minutes to show up in your Google Sheets. So we'll start from the top. We want to pull data from our spreadsheet back into here. How do we do that? Google Forms just simply takes a list of a column of spreadsheets and pulls it into the question. So we're going to click here and we're going to click on add-ons, and now we should see Form Ranger. So when you clicked on Form Ranger, you should be able to click Start. And that's going to come up with a list of questions, and this is automatically linked to the spreadsheet that you created earlier when you copied. So we want to populate a range, and this only works on multiple choice, and so this says total hours displayed, so it's actually linking to this question, what do you want to do? So we're going to populate from a range, then we're going to hit new range. It's going to show the last created list, and we just created one that said demo, so we're going to select that one. Hit select. And we are going to go to the overview sheet, and then on the column, I've already created this in the spreadsheet, we're going to go to total hours. And it should list the total hours just like the question we have here. If I was to look at that work tracking sheet, what it's linking to, if we look in here, we'll see there's an overview sheet. There's one that's called Form Responses. That's where the data from your Google Forms is going to be entered, that the apprentices will enter daily. So there's like I've set it up for 100,000 entries, so there should be plenty over the course of 4 years. So we're going to do Overview, and whatever hours they've entered, what it's going to do is it looks for this column header, and it's just basically going to put this choice, this, and it's going to update these values here when they enter data. So they don't, and it's just going to take this whole column, and it's going to take every time they open it up. We'll hit next. We'll give it a name. We'll call it Overview. We will save and populate the question. And click these two boxes here, because that will pull the data every hour from your spreadsheet and put it into your Google form. So make sure you check those two boxes, and we'll close it. And then we're going to see if it's working. Now, when you do this, you have to do it for every student. This does not transfer when we copy. So you'll have to do this for every student that you set up. So I'm just simply going to enter some time here, enter 5 hours. It's copied over here. We're just testing it. This previous work experience should be done when they're signed in, and you fill that in. So we're going to see that they had shop equipment of 5 hours. I'm going to come back over to Demo. I'm going to open that into Google Forms. And if everything works, I may have to wait an hour for it to do anything. Let's see. Well, let's go ahead and we'll save the form. We'll submit the form so we have some data in there. Oh, I'm sorry. We're still in edit mode. We have to go to view mode. So we'll come over here and we'll hit preview. And we'll hit submit. Close that out. Hit preview again. And we'll see that on submit, or once an hour, it's going to time out and pull that data in. And so we'll see that this 5 hours we entered over here is now displayed in the student questionnaire. Like I said, they don't answer that question. It's just a way for them to see where they're at. Now, on this overview screen, you would have to adjust it. What I've done is I've added conditional formatting to these. And I've simply added a color scale and applied it to that range. And my program plan was they had to have 500 hours, and so I've done 0 and 500. And as they fill that in, it will turn green. When it's a solid green color, that section is complete. And the students can access this spreadsheet if you share it with them, and they can see where they're at on the overview. So we've opened up this spreadsheet, and this is so we can see how it works. I'm going to go ahead and go into preview mode, and I'm going to enter some time. We click here, we can use our date picker. We'll just enter some time today, and we'll start at the top, how to set up, and we'll pick 4 hours. At the very bottom, I would suggest the students add notes so you can kind of see what their entries are on, and we'll say press machine 1. And then we'll hit submit. Here the students can see this on their phone or on the computer. They can edit their response, see previous responses, submit another one, etc. So we're going to go back to the demo, the spreadsheet, the Google Sheet. And we'll go to form responses. And so the data we entered here goes to form responses. And we'll see that how to set up had 4 hours. Notice it's all laid out in a linear fashion. And here's the notes at the end, press machine 1. And what we have at the we've got to parse this data out into sections the way I've set this up. If you're not seeing this reflected in the overview screen, you might have to click the refresh button on your browser. So we'll see that we have 4 hours. If we come over to preventative maintenance, it says current hours are 4. Now the student, you can't modify this because this is linked to our form query spreadsheet. So let's take a look at that. So we're going to go to form query, and what it does is it basically takes the responses, because if I enter a second response here, let's go ahead and enter another one, and preventative maintenance. And we'll put 4 hours of lubrication. We'll go ahead and refresh this to make sure it's up to date. And we'll see that we have 2 entries here with a timestamp and a date. We didn't put a date in the other one, but we can still see the timestamp. The apprentice entered the date. And so they had lubrication, and they had 4 hours. So on my spreadsheet, let's see where that data goes. First of all, I have mine split up by section. So under preventative maintenance, I want to parse these out. So we'll go to form query, and we'll see how that query works. So under the first one, what we did is select D of E, where D begins how to set up. And we have 4 hours under how to set up. And if you're not seeing this time, refresh your browser because you'll have to pull data from the Google servers. So we'll see that of the total sum, we've got 4 hours here under how to set up, These are simply sum columns to 100,000. So every entry gets summed up into these sections. And if we scroll over, we'll see that I've highlighted these different sections in yellow, and then we have lubrication, and we have 4 hours here. So how does this query work? Well, let's take a look. Starting here, it says form response 1 spreadsheet right there, which links here, and it says select column D and E. So we're going to pull data from the entire column. We're going to look, this is going to scan the entire column, and it says where D equals how to set up. And what it's going to do is it's simply just going to pull that data and put it over here, and then we're going to sum it right here. So if we go back to form responses, we'll see that column D is a preventative maintenance section, and it's got different entries here, and the next one over has 4 hours here and 4 hours here, and so we want to parse those out so we can put into the individual spreadsheet sections. I will caution you with these queries that they are case sensitive, so this needs to match your question exactly. Okay, so what if I want your work processes are not going to match mine? So how do I change that? So let's go through that, and we're going to change a question, and we'll see how well that works. So I'm in edit mode of my Google form. I'm going to come down to the preventative maintenance section, and I'm going to do let's say, we'll just say that mine says lubrication. This is straight from my DOL processes when I filed my plan. We'll say lubrication of bearings. Or you can change the name here. So if you have, this is different, you can change that one and say, well, ours says PM. We'll abbreviate. Doesn't matter what text you pick. So we'll do PM, pick section. Alright. Now we're going to enter 4 hours of lubrication on a bearing. We'll hit preview. Lubrication of a bearing, and we'll enter 4 hours. And then we'll submit the form. Notice here that I can enter, this is where you would enter the apprentice's name, and this is simply just a spreadsheet, and so you can enter their start date and their name right here. I've also added a time calculator link here, so you can go in there and let's say they forgot to do one for a week or something. You can go calculate a date range and the number of hours of work a week using that link. So we've entered a new form response over here. It says lubrication of a bearing, but we've got to fix the Google query because you're modifying it from my original sheet. And so what I'm going to do, so I don't get any typos or anything, we're going to come over here and we're going to go to form query, and we're going to go to, we click on every other one. This is how to set up, how to perform. This one is the lubrication section. And notice that it's scanning the same columns in this section. It's scanning the same columns. Where D of E, where D equals how to perform. It's because we're parsing out the data from over here. Because we can't add up the individual sections, we're going to split them up. So If we come over here, all I have to do to make this my own is come over here and I copy the text from that other question I modified, and I'll say lubrication of a bearing, and I'll hit enter. Notice that it automatically updated, and so what it did was it went back to form responses. It ignored this one and only did lubrication of a bearing, and it pulled the data in. So where does that data go once I've parsed it out? Well, I have different sections of the spreadsheet. We'll click on the Preventative Maintenance section, and we'll see that this is linked to the Form Query tab or worksheet, and it has it is linked to B1. So it's always going to pull data from B1. So if I come back to the Form Query sheet, it's basically going to take all the data from B1 right here. So this is summing all of their individual entries into one section, and then it's linked over here to Preventative Maintenance B1. So how do I modify this? Well, you're going to have to change your text, change all the text to the sections you want, and then you would have to change your questions, modify your questions to what you need. So get all of that changed. And then you would come over here, and what I can do is under the form query, wherever it's at, I can simply copy this and paste it to a new unused column, and I would simply change this wording and this wording, and then I would change this wording. I would leave everything else the same, and then you can duplicate this. I know it's a little complicated, but it's a free way to do work tracking for your apprentices without having to pay for software, and they can do it on their phone fairly easy, and it's free.